Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to talk a little bit about spaying your dog and our experience with spaying our Havanese baby Pistachio. I think for a lot of puppy parents, the spaying, neutering surgery is probably the first procedure and hopefully the last procedure that you'll be putting your dog through. And with that, it can bring a lot of stress for puppy parents, ranging from concern on just how you're going to keep your dog still while they're healing, over to maybe a big sense of guilt for putting your dog through something that can be scary and feel traumatic. Before I even go into our experience with spaying Pistachio and some tips and tricks that worked for us, I just want to give you permission to be here and to be considering spaying or neutering your dog. And I just want you to consider a couple things that might make you feel better. Which is, one, this surgery is going to give your dog freedom. You are giving them the gift of freedom. It allows them to socialize freely with other dogs without having to worry about an unwanted pregnancy. It takes away the fear of another dog being around your dog when you're not aware and what could happen. And it gives them freedom and you freedom from some of the more unpleasant things that happen when they don't get spayed or neutered, which for a girl can be periods. Dogs do get periods, and that's going to either mean extra cleanup for you, or maybe even wearing an uncomfortable diaper for your little girl. And then spaying and neutering can also help with some behavioral issues that come from those mating hormones. Things like humping, being super vocal, even aggression. Some of those things can change for the better after this surgery. And then last but not least, this is probably the most common surgery that your vet performs. You are not the first person to consider spaying or neutering your dog. This is an extremely frequent procedure in these offices. So I can almost guarantee your vet is going to feel very confident and comfortable performing a surgery like this on your dog. They're going to be able to do it with excellence. It's not their first rodeo, even though it might be yours. And it's very likely that the procedure and recovery will go so smoothly. So I say all these things to remind you that you're not throwing your dog to the wolves. And you're not putting them through something that is inhumane. So let's talk about what you can do to prepare for the spay, first of all. A couple tips. Crate train. We had already been sleeping our dog in her crate at night. She was totally comfortable with it, very used to it. And we'd also been doing some mandatory naps throughout the day, which had sort of tapered off by the time that she was spayed, which was like 7 to 8 months. But they were still fresh enough in her system that she wouldn't be shocked if we would put her into the crate for a couple hours in the middle of the day when she was spayed, so that we'd have less exercise during the day, less movement that could possibly split up in the stitches or just sort of hinder the healing process. It was a good way to make sure she was resting enough. So we would just split those up a couple times throughout the day. And then she slept in the crate at night. So I had no worries about her jumping up onto furniture or getting into any other sort of complications during the night while we slept. Even if you're not interested in crate training your dog, I would encourage you maybe do it just up until the spay surgery so that you have this as a resource for the healing process, and then you can just phase it out after she's recovered. You also want to consider in advance what you'll use to keep them from licking the stitches, which, there's the good old plastic cone, but there's also some foam cones and some inflatable cones that you can use that I think are softer and more comfortable for the dog. They will be wearing something like this for 2 weeks following the surgery until they are completely uninterested in the stitches, which means they have to sleep in it at night too, so just try to pick something comfortable. You can also do a recovery suit, which is what we ended up doing. It's kind of like a little baby onesie, but it's meant for a dog's body. I'll link the one that we got. I like the shape of that on a Havanese body. But maybe try to have them practice wearing clothing before you get to the surgery. Whatever you have them wear is likely something you're going to have to take on and off during the healing process. And if your dog has a strong aversion or fear, or in Pistachio's case, a little bit of aggression towards clothing, then it's just going to make the recovery process so much more frustrating. So introduce that clothing in very small intervals, lots of rewards before you get to the surgery, and try to increase the positive relationship with that device that you plan on using. Also, maybe consider buying a couple if you're doing the recovery suit, because it is 2 weeks and the first one might get soiled, it might just start to smell, and you might feel better being able to switch it out. And lastly, you want your dog to be comfortable showing belly. You're going to want to track how the incision looks day after day following the surgery, so you can make sure it's healing properly and that there's no complications. So really try to get your dog comfortable with either being flipped onto their back or just being able to touch their belly area. My hack, if your dog is super uncomfortable having their belly touched is that you can also just take flash videos with your phone underneath their belly, so you can make sure that you can like then look at the phone and figure out what it's looking like. But it's pretty important you can touch it and feel it and make sure that there's no like really concerning bumps or lumps or oozing, whatever. Like it's helpful to be able to have access to your dog's tummy. Okay, so the immediate recovery after surgery. You should expect your dog to be coming off of anesthesia and not acting like themselves. It's going to be hard because you will have missed them during the procedure. You're going to be so excited to have them back in your home, but they might not react to you the way that they usually do. When we brought Pistachio home, she was wide-eyed, drooling, very stiff, no wags, no kisses. Like, she just was not really her usual self. And it took the whole evening that she was home for her to start to act like herself again. It literally wasn't until the next morning that I started to see my dog acting like herself again. I think there's a few reasons they act so weird. I mean, they are coming off anesthesia, that's the primary one, but also they've just been through surgery. They might be in pain or they might just be feeling really stiff. And then if they're wearing a cone or a recovery suit, that's not familiar probably, so they're going to just be feeling kind of uncomfortable. Don't force your dog to interact with you. You don't need to pull them onto your lap unless you know that's like a known comfort for them. But when Pistachio came home, I let her out of the crate. It took a while for her to even come out of the crate, and I did not force her. I just gave her full reign of the floor. I sat on the couch with her. I had lots of pillow ramps leading up to the couch if she wanted to come up, because you don't want them jumping at that stage. But she just stayed on the floor and just sat and stared a lot. She sort of would doze off, but mostly it was just a lot of stiff sitting and looking around. Don't be scared by that. It's normal, but it is a little bit disconcerting when you're used to them acting so differently when they're home. Let your puppy lead in that immediate recovery part. If they're coming to you for cuddles, give them cuddles. But if they just want to lay down and sleep or just stare into the unknown, it's okay to just be present in the room with them, but not need them to interact with you. If they want to hide in their crate, they can hide in their crate. That's their safe place. You just want to kind of be within earshot so that if you do hear something concerning or see something concerning, you know what's going on. I would say they probably will throw up at some point. Listen to your vet's wisdom on if this is a red flag or not. Our puppy did throw up the first night back while she was in her crate, and we had her within hearing distance, so I could tell she was bearing something, which is usually throw up, and I was able to switch out her sheets. But again, coming off anesthesia, big stress of the day, I wasn't super surprised that she threw up, and she didn't keep throwing up after that. It was just like one bomb and that was it. The night we got back from surgery, I wasn't sure if she would eat or drink anything. She had been fasting all day, but typically when she's stressed, our dog doesn't really eat or drink. But I did make her some scrambled eggs that night, and by the time it was nighttime, she was ready for it. So I was able to hand feed her some scrambled eggs, and I was glad she ate that. Whatever you feed them, you kind of want to make sure they don't just guzzle it because they are on an empty stomach and they are coming off meds. So by hand feeding, I felt like I could control how much she was taking in at one time. If the doctor gives you any sort of medications to take that night, like I think we had the anti-inflammation drug, I would recommend crushing that up and making sure all of it makes it into their favorite meal if you're going to be feeding them something. So I was able to mix that into her scrambled eggs and got all of it in her, which was great. Going off of the weird behavior when they're coming off of anesthesia, they might be moody with you. They might growl when they're touched. They're just not acting like themselves. Don't take it super seriously. I can almost promise you it's not going to stick. They're just feeling a little weird. For potty breaks that first day, we have stairs that lead down into our backyard, and I did not want our dog taking the stairs when she was still in immediate recovery. So we just sort of encouraged her onto one of our dog beds and picked her up like a taco, spaceshipped her outside, put her down in a really small fenced-in area that we made in advance, just so that she wasn't gallivanting all over the yard and being too active. Brought the spaceship down, let her walk out. She didn't go. I don't think she used the bathroom at all that day. She might have peed right before bedtime, but there was no number 2. We got her back into the spaceship and we floated her back inside and set her down. I just felt a little bit nervous about picking her up. I was just so afraid of stretching her skin the wrong way and maybe opening an incision. They're still very fresh at that point. And then at night, we put her into her crate, which she was used to sleeping in every night. We kept her within earshot, and I heard her moving around a lot that night. I don't think it was a super restful night for her, but she wasn't crying, and she was trying to get comfortable as best she could. If they do whine, I would suggest maybe giving them another potty break, but keep them in a generally small space. If you're not using a crate, maybe use the pen for that night again so that they're not being too active or hurting themselves in a way that you don't know about because you're sleeping. By the next morning, I think we started to see our dog again. She was happy when she came out of the crate and we got lots of kisses, but she was very sleepy that day, and she was sleepy for probably 3 to 5 days following it. Pretty mellow. I think she did pick up a toy from the first day after the spay, but it was like a very like lethargic sort of play, like, and we did not play fetch. We usually play fetch with her. We did not throw anything for her. We would just sort of like tug a toy back and forth like that to give her that fun, playful stimulation, but like you really want to avoid them moving too much when they're in recovery. And remember, this first day, take a picture of that incision. You want to be tracking progress on it all throughout your puppy's healing process. It's going to give you peace of mind, and if anything goes wonky, you have something to show the vet. They might sleep a lot for that first week after the surgery, and let them. It's great for them. It's going to speed up the healing process. I think by day 3, we were picking her up to go outside, but we kept a very small bathroom space for her for that entire first week. We just didn't want her running around the yard. Even if she was in the mood too, we wanted to keep that healing going really smoothly. And you want to keep movement low. So we just gave her the living room for the first week. We crossed off access to the rest of the house, and we just wanted to make sure she wasn't going to get zoomies, God forbid. And they're going to start getting angsty. Just prepare yourself. You're not playing with them in the way that you might usually, and they're going to have some of that toddler energy built up. Don't feel bad about it. Even if they don't understand, you're doing it for their safety. Find some calm ways for them to entertain themselves. Puzzle toys are amazing. They don't require a lot of movement of the body besides just sniffing and tossing. So food's gonna become your best friend. Snacks, chews, all those good low energy activities. Create ramps where you can. We used a lot of pillow ramps with our couches. Introduce some delicious foods, especially to help get medicine into them if you need to. You can just mix it right in there. Peanut butter is your friend. Scrambled eggs is probably your friend. Keep taking pictures of that incision. Ours, the first day, looked pretty tame. I was surprised at how non-gory it looked, but it started to look more gory within that first week as it scabbed up. It was still healing, but it kind of freaked me out a little bit. I think day 3, it even like split open ever so slightly, so she had some fresh blood there, and I was like, oh my gosh, what have we done? But it was fine. As long as it's not, smelling rancid, turning weird colors, continuing to ooze, those are pretty good signs. But if you're concerned about anything, take those pictures to your vet and see what they think. By the end of 2 weeks, she wasn't really licking her stitches anymore. We took off the recovery suit. I think we put the foam cone on for a couple days because she was still licking, which we didn't realize, but she was. And then we took it off her once the incision was basically healed up and there was nothing to lick, even if she did investigate down there. And then I think a whole month after the surgery, when I would touch her scar, it felt a little bumpy. That was a little freaky to me. I realize now that was just scar tissue. It didn't stick around, even though there was like bumps under the surface of the skin. But again, anything that freaks you out, you can run it by your vet. And here's my biggest encouragement for you. After 2 weeks, she was back to her normal self. She was naked once again, and she was able to move and run around much more freely and comfortably without the risk of teenage pregnancy, which we love. So here she is. It's been almost a year since the spay, and I don't think she has any memory of it. And she's living her best life ever. She has lots of boyfriends, but she's protected properly. Your dog's not gonna hate you for this surgery. They won't even tie you to the blame of the surgery, trust me. And she is perfectly fine now. She acts just like herself. I think even a little bit better. She got more cuddly after the spay. I have no regrets. It was the perfect decision for our family and for Miss Pistachio. So I think that's about it. That's what you can expect. That's how you can prepare. Every dog's experience will be a little bit different. Use your vet, though, as your guide stone for your puppy's progress if you're feeling insecure or worried about anything. And don't beat yourself up. This is such a great choice you can make for your dog, and it's going to enhance their quality of life and yours. I'm cheering you on, cheering your puppy on. I hope the whole experience is super smooth for you. Good luck.